So she is an author, YouTuber,
Yeah.
and just mom. She talks about family life, and she's hysterical. But what I appreciate about her is just the authenticity, and she calls bullshit out all the time, and not just of other people, but what we do to ourselves. And
Yep.
so, but she just does it in such a way that it's like instead of being mad that you got called out, you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I guess I do that.
This is the online trainer show, trainer show, trainer show. This is the online trainer show. We shouldn't have a podcast.
So, Amber, it is you and I today.
I know the boys are off. Ren's with the mouse in Disneyland, Disney World, I
Uh
think.
huh.
And John sent us a message this morning and was like, I'm too sick. I got the second COVID shot. I'm better, but I don't want to do the podcast today. So it's just us.
You know what? I am totally fine for that. I have kind of like secretly been waiting for this moment for the past, 117 episodes. So I feel like it's time for
Yeah.
the women, for the
This,
females.
this is the way it was supposed to be, I feel like. Like this is it. This is gonna be a whole
So today we have an interesting topic because we are talking about.
our role models, our other female role models growing up and the ones that we currently look up to today as well.
Absolutely. And so now here's a really important thing for like the people listening. If you're a guy and right now you're like, oh, it's just the girls, like it's just the women talking, and they're probably going to be talking about more women specific thing, you need to check yourself right now because that is absolutely like sexism. Just, like a person's private parts do not define how much they can contribute in knowledge, experience, and information. So if at any point in time that cross your mind, this is your moment to self-reflect on why the heck you feel like that is okay, because it is not okay.
And chances are you probably work with women. And on top of that, I can
Hmm.
guarantee you're probably one of the students asking us, I don't know what to talk about. This whole episode, you're
Yep.
going to be given people that we follow. And chances are these are also women that your clients are following. And this gives you an idea of what kind of things that they're interested in and things that they need you to know and to hear.
Absolutely true. You need to be kind of like immersed in the worlds that your clients are a part of. And that involves social media figures and, experts or whatever. And so if you are disconnected from those worlds, you can be telling your clients a specific kind of information and it's going in one ear and out the other because they are being bombarded by different information from different experts from different angles that you are just not even cluing into. And so that's kind of like on you to expand your horizons and to step into the world that your clients, where they interact. And so now, but before we get to formal, Amber, because I don't want us missing Ren too much, before we get to formal, you gotta tell me about what's going on in your world because I have something to share, but it's your turn first.
Oh,
For
God.
how's little Nate?
Nate is good. He is, so I've mentioned before, he is on the spectrum and he's still very much pre-verbal. And
Uh-huh.
so the only words he really has right now are like no, go, hey, and mom. And in classic like spectrum kiddos,
Yeah.
vehicles are really big for him. And so I had built
Oh.
a fence in the front yard for an extra safety feature for him and the dogs. And he loves it when golf carts or cars drive by. And so what he does now is he chases the vehicles up and down the fence line and he yells at them. And so
Oh.
the other day he's like, hey, 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 chasing the car down the fence line as a golf cart was driving by, this young couple with their kid. He's just yelling really loud, hey, hey, hey. And then when he ran out of fence line to keep running, he's like, no, 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 just super sad. And so like he
Oh.
only has like these four words, but he's very expressive with these four words. And
Right,
so it's
right.
just funny and to see him how to like
That's
see how
adorable. I love it because it's like it's a handful of words, but he makes it work. It's like
exactly.
so I feel like the parallel here is like, hey, maybe as a trainer, as a new trainer, you have only a few tools, but how you make them work for you is gonna be like you can do wonders with just a few tools.
Yep.
So you know how nature hates me, right?
Yes.
Like I get stung by bees, I find bunny faces in my yard, like squirrel tails, all that stuff. So I found something else in my yard,
Oh,
Amber.
Lord. What now?
Oh. Okay.
I guess. Was it a raccoon? Was it a mole?
I found, and I swear to God, this is true. And it was like, it's legitimately like a fluke. We have no idea where it came from. There's a pot plant growing in my yard.
Sure, accidents.
Yeah. We have a cannabis plant growing in our yard, and it's freaking hilarious. Well, just for context as well, for everybody listening in other countries, cannabis is legal in Canada, so we're not, it's not an illegal drug here or anything. It's just freaking funny because I mean, Jeff and I, we don't use it. We never smoke it. I was never into it. It was never like my thing. So for this plant that is like very highly valued for certain people to go and land randomly in our yard of all people that we have no use for it, we have no need, and it's just funny because from what I understand, it can be difficult to get these plants to like sprout and grow properly and everything. This is like in a crack on the driveway. Like, why are plants like this? Like, it's in the most uncomfortable place and awkward position and everything, and it's thriving. It's super happy, and I'm like, I'm just gonna leave it and see what happens.
I don't think that's nature hating you anymore. I think you're trying to make up for the fact that it's going to be dirty
That's
with
right.
random animals showing up in your yard dead and in your house.
Yes, absolutely. So I do feel too, like, you know how nature hates me? I feel like this is nature kind of like being like, okay, here you go. There's something funny and kind of cute that I'm doing for you.
And not totally disgusting. Yeah.
So so for today's story, I was torn in between the pot plant story and the strip joint story. But then I guess we'll wait for the strip joint story for when the guys are back.
Yeah. As much as I want to hear about it now, I kind of need to see John and Ren.
Yes, we need their reaction too. That's gonna be.
Oh, they can't be here, so we'll have to wait until he gets back.
Yes. When is he back, by the way? Not this following episode, but the one after.
Yeah,
jerk. Having fun without us. We don't even know who he went with. Well, he sent us. He better send us goodies. Do we know who he went with? Is this a family thing, or is this
No. I mean, he doesn't share anything with
anything.
us.
He's an enigma.
Exactly.
Ren, if you are listening, we want to know about your life.
We need to get like online people on this, like to start digging for dirt on Ren. So if you are like a hacker of some sort, please get us information that we can use against Ren, just for our own amusement.
Cyber attack. Poor Ren. He's gonna hear this like, what? Why are they sending internet sleuths? Oh. Okay, so Amber, so you have compilated a list of women that you follow in social media. Tell me about that.
What I was hoping to hear from you first is our first kind of experiences with role models kind of growing up. So because the way that we grow up very much influences kind of how we perceive women and the people that we follow growing up. So like who is like the big role model in your life growing up?
Oh, wow. That's a really difficult question. Okay, I was not expecting this one, and now I'm going to have to think because I can't remember. I mean, for background, like I grew up reading, like, for example, the entire Babysitter's Club series. A lot of women our age are gonna like relate to those.
What doesn't have to be an author? It could be personal too.
Yeah. So I was thinking about one of the characters there, like the president of the Babysitters Club, and her personality always resonated with me. And she was athletic and she was fun, but she was like, once she got to a task, she kind of like wanted to succeed at everything. And that was always kind of like my pattern growing up. So I feel like that character out of a book for me as a child, like it was something that I could hang on to and be like, okay, there's, I can be like this person. I can kind of like model what this person does in the books. So yeah, Christy, the president of the Babysitters Club series.
We're doing a new series on that, like a TV series.
Are they?
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that.
FYI.
Ooh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
Go
So
down this.
yeah, off the top of my head, that's one that I can think of. How about you?
So classic response being mom. We grew up in the military and we moved every 2 to 3 years. And Marine Corps does not get like good budget, and so like housing is usually not that great.
Mm,
um, and like I just remember like no matter what, like we could have been living in a cardboard box, and mom would have made it fun and everything was okay. Or like when we lived in
yeah.
North Carolina, we dealt with a lot of hurricanes, and like we would sit in the hallway and she'd bring out snacks and we'd play games, and like literally the world is falling
Mm.
apart around us, and like she makes it fun and makes everything okay no matter what. And so
Oh, that's
just like
amazing.
learning that skill from a young age was really helpful. And so like really no matter what, everything is going to be okay. I just got to put in the effort
Hmm.
to do that, and it's really within my control to handle that. And so that was something that I learned from her, that I'm very grateful for.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I mean, I wish that I could also jump and be like, oh, my mom. But the reality is, like, for me, for example, with my own mother, because we are so drastically different. And even though I felt very loved growing up, I never felt like my mom really got me or understood me. And so I couldn't kind of like see myself in the future like my mom. Like she was very academic, she was a teacher. I was terrible in school, failing. Like, are you kidding me? Like I was her worst nightmare. I think.
You were
So
exactly what she needed.
yeah, I feel like I was one of those. I was put in her life to test her, like to teach her things about patience and acceptance and all this kind of stuff. Because for real, like that was my experience. So it was very difficult for me to kind of like clutch onto like a vision of like me being
Yeah.
like my mom or something like that. But I
And it
can
still is that way.
see, yeah, no, like I can see how having somebody like that would be so valuable that, even when everything is going wrong, that you have that reminder that you can still choose to make things fine in your immediate world.
No, exactly. Yeah, and we don't, I mean, everybody's family situation is different, and not even if your relationship with your parents is great, we still have to look for outside role models because they can't be everything, and they're not
Yes.
perfect, they're still human. And so while they may be great at some things, they can't be a role model in other things. And so finding other positive influences is really important.
I completely agree. And I think that's one of the things that has benefited me from maybe not having like that specific vision of my mom as my role model is that it has actually liberated me from feeling like I have to be that for my daughters. Because at the end of the day, it's like I didn't have that, and I feel like I'm doing really well even without that, or having found my own way in other circles. And so I feel very free to be like, hey, I'm like you say, like I'm still human, I make mistakes, I'm not going to be your perfect role model all the time. You might find things here and there from me that are going to serve you in your life in the future, and if they don't, like, I'm okay with not being the all to my kids, right? Because that's a lot of pressure that moms kind of like
You know.
put on
Well, it's not
themselves.
helpful for them either. That puts a lot of pressure on them as well. So that's a
Hmm.
good point.
Yeah. So tell me about your thoughts about, for example, the influences that we find in the fitness industry. What do you think that most women tend to gravitate towards?
As far as like finding someone to follow, or
Yeah, yeah. What do you think calls to, like, from the women that you work with, when
Mhm.
there's like, I don't know, like a fit pro or an Instagram model or whoever it is that they follow, it doesn't matter. What characteristics do you think make it really appealing for women to kind of like look up to and follow?
I think it's really interesting because it seems to be two camps, and often they kind of do both, and they're kind of competing with like their, let's say, like top level brain and then kind of like subconscious. And
Hmm.
so they really enjoy women who are very authentic and real and imperfect because it gives them permission to be imperfect themselves. But then they also seem to torture themselves by following certain women who seem to quote unquote have it all together, or have the quote
Yeah.
unquote perfect body or perfect situation or whatever. And it's so funny because 99% of the time, those particular women are selling garbage.
Hmm.
Whether it's, some just not great supplement or whatever. It's not something that they personally believe in. It's just something that they're trying to kind of swindle their followers a little bit. And so I find they tend to do both. And it's like, this is what I really enjoy, but I can't help but torturing myself by following this other person too. So I just find it interesting that it seems to be both within the same person.
I have noticed the exact same thing, and it seems almost like it's like a guilty pleasure. Too. It's like, I know that the Instagram model is, it's all retouched and it's photoshopped and it's filters and it's not real, but I still want to look like that a little bit. And so I still have her on my feed, and I still have those images and ideas kind of like popping up. I do that too from time to time. Like when the people share enough of valuable content or enough or like insightful content, I'll stick around for a little bit longer, even if I know that the images totally conflict with what I know to be true. So it's interesting that we do that, and it's almost like mental gymnastics, how we choose to maintain some but not others. Like, I guess we all have like certain filters that that we apply to the people that we follow on social media. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we're human and weird. That's all I look for everything. We're just weird.
We're just weird. And so, for example, for you, because I know, like, how are you more active on following people on Facebook, on Instagram? How does that work for you?
It depends. I'm mostly on Facebook, but I do follow some people on Instagram because that's where they're at, and I like definitely want to follow up with them because they're not on Facebook. So it just depends, but I'm largely on Facebook. I'm old.
Okay.
I prefer.
Well, it's funny because lately I've been loving Instagram. Like, I have never had this before. I've always kind of like had it as a side. I had to keep up with it, I felt like at that time for my business or whatever. But now I'm legitimately enjoying it more. Like, I'm starting to finally, after 7 years or God knows how long I've had it, I'm finally starting to get like an understanding of how it works and why it's so popular.
Beaten in. It's like, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah, I finally gave up. I'm like, whatever, let's do this.
You always do good though. It's fun to follow you.
So here's a hot tip that I just learned today, and I learned it by accident because I was just, I don't know, like I'm tired sometimes of thinking what to say. Like, I want to post a picture for the sake of the picture, but not everything has to be like super insightful or super deep or whatever. Like, that can get tiring too for you who are putting it out, and also for the reader always getting like smacked with like wisdom or teaching. There's like sometimes you just want to keep it light. Yeah, exactly. You're just smacking people left and right with wisdom. Stop. So I was like, oh, whatever. I'm just gonna Google like Instagram fitness captions. And then here's what happened. Like, of course, a list, tons of websites, blog posts, whatever, with, funny or quirky or the trite that you have heard 1,000 times before from everybody else or whatever. But as I'm reading these lists of Instagram captions and I'm writing the ones that actually kind of like resonate with me somehow, now I'm getting ideas of what I want to post thanks to the caption.
Smart.
So yeah, so I had never thought of the working it the other way around, but now, by trying to be lazy and find this thing to make my life easier, now it's actually sparking ideas and creativity on that front. So anyway, That's a tip for anyone.
Following someone that you strongly disagree with will definitely get the creative juices flowing.
That's a good, I hadn't thought of that, but that's actually freaking brilliant because it's true.
That's so wrong.
Yes, and then you get to take all your ideas about why you are so against what this person is saying, and you get to create your own kind of like content explaining your vision without even mentioning them. They don't have to be part of the equation. But then that's how you get your people in your circle and the people who are going to be part of your team.
Exactly.
That is very smart. Has that happened to you lately? Is that what you thought of it?
Well, no, not recently. I'm very careful about what I follow because I do have a decent amount of anxiety, and so I'm very careful about what I follow.
Right.
But when I was less careful, I did just happen to notice, like, I think that's dumb, and then would start, posting stuff. I think about when I used to do that more.
That's really funny. I'm gonna keep that one in the idea bank too.
There you go. So let's kind of talk about women that we think are good role models in their own ways, because they're still human beings, imperfect, but they have something to give and to learn from. And I think kind of sharing who we personally follow, and maybe what you've heard other people, who you've heard other people follow as well for positive reasons would be great.
All right. So for me, one that is always kind of like top of my list whenever people ask me about women, like recommendations and women to follow or whatever, Megan Calloway. She
Yeah.
is fantastic, fantastic. If you're not following her on Instagram, you must. Like, she shares ton of value. And like, her content is so simple because it's just a video of her doing, a workout move. But what happens is that she's really good in designing workarounds for, at home setting. Now with the pandemic, everybody was working out at home, and her social media exploded thanks to that, because she's so good at explaining it. She's so clear. There's nothing like showy or spark, like there's no big, flashy anything. It's just straight to the point, informative, valuable, and easy to understand, easy to apply instantly. And that's what has, gotten her so much attention. She was featured in Men's Health and all that bunch of different stuff lately in this past year, and she deserves it because she has been working hard and just keeping on top of delivering super quality content every single day.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's great. One that I follow, I'm going to go to a different industry, is financial industry. So Tori Dunlap, she's the financial feminist, and so she focuses on helping women earn their first, or save their first $100,000. And for me, talking to students as often as I do, and when we talk about our freedom number, where, how much do you need to make to cover all of your essentials, your bills, and all that stuff? And without fail, the vast majority of them are missing things like retirement and emergency savings or FU money,
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And it drives me bananas that we don't set ourselves up for success. And it's unfortunate because, there's, especially with women, the wage gap and all of these other things that kind of start us behind the starting line a little bit.
Yep.
So I think she's done a really great job to be relatable, to make it really easy and straightforward about how do you build wealth as a woman. And there's a quote that I wrote down that I thought was really interesting, especially because in our industry, we hear this a lot. I empower women to whatever. And that word has never sat right with me, and I could never figure out why.
Yeah.
She nailed it, and I love it to pieces. And I'll read the quote, but she says, "I don't like the phrase empowering women. The definition of empower is to be given power. You don't need to be given power. You already have it. You just need to learn how to use it." And so that just really, yes, anytime I've heard, I empower women to do this, I empower women to do that, I'm like, that just feels uncomfortable to me.
Yep.
She nailed why it is. And for some women, maybe it will resonate with them, so it's not necessarily wrong to use it. But for me personally, and for some women, take note that may not be a word that sits comfortably. So I think Tori Dunlap would be a really great person to follow, especially for kind of Generation Z, millennial women, to help them get their financial feet underneath them.
I love that. And it's very true. There's actually a very cool conversation that I had some years ago with Krista Scott Dixon. And it was precisely on that, like her griping against the empowering of women. She's like, women don't need to, quote unquote, be empowered. Like, power is, inherent in women. It's just like, it's not something that you bestow upon women, right? It's not something that you give them permission to have or that you gift them. It's like they already have it. So yeah, I agree. So I've been very intentional in my own career. Like once I started kind of like considering more of that, I don't use that phrase either. And that is precisely the reason why I completely am on board with you on that one. All right, the next one for me. And okay, this one that I'm going to share next, she has been like my secret weapon. Like, and nothing, I haven't paid for any of her services yet, just because I haven't felt that I needed it, because she has so much valuable content on her feed for free already. And her name, she's on Instagram, and her handle is Rebel Nutrition. So it's Rebel, like Rebelle, Rebel.
That's cute. I like it.
Yeah,
And we
Rebel
will put
Nutrition.
everything in the show notes. So like don't panic if you're driving and listening to the podcast. We will put all of this in the show notes so you don't have to dig it out.
Awesome. And now the reason she actually is like she works in nutrition or whatever, but the thing that I have been learning about her is the Instagram hustle. She is fantastic at explaining you how to use stories, what to do with reels, how to discover what's trending, how to make sure that your reel gets seen, what hashtags to use, what to alter in your profile so that you get more reach and that you're discovered by more new people. She's freaking fantastic at teaching people how to work Instagram for their business. And if you want to learn, like that's what I've been doing lately, like basically just following her hints and tips. And it's so freaking fun too. Like if you have a creative phone in your body and you want to like play around, it's so freaking fun. So totally go check out her stuff. She has 136,000 followers. And she has grown insanely in the past few months just because of the amazing work. I discovered her on TikTok, follow her on Instagram, never giving her up. She's fantastic. Her name is Amy.
That's great. One for me that the name probably won't sound familiar for a lot of people, but her videos would be very familiar. Christina Kuzmic. So she is an author, YouTuber, and just mom. She talks about family life, and she's hysterical. But what I appreciate about her is just the authenticity, and she calls bullshit out all the time, and not just of other people, but what we do to ourselves. And
Yep.
so, but she just does it in such a way that it's like instead of being mad that you got called out, you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I guess I do that.
It's true.
So,
It's true. I do be like that.
oh yeah, exactly. So you get to laugh, and then also kind of a little bit of humility, and kind of just reset yourself.
There's gonna be some of that.
Yeah, exactly. So she would be one for me, and then especially for people who have women as clients, the videos would be very relatable. So talk about content, like major, because you don't always need to come up with original content. Content can be from other sources, and so sharing something of hers, and obviously giving credit and tagging and all that fun stuff, but it will start a conversation, and it can add to your brand identity. So. So Christina Kuzmic would be also on my list.
Awesome. So the next one up, I think she actually lives in Toronto, so she's in our hood. Well, Jonathan would disagree with that because Barrie is so far away from Toronto. Oh, whatever. But she is amazing, and her name, Instagram as well. And she's also on Twitter. She's very active in Twitter, and she gets in awesome Twitter fights with the densest, stupidest men because she is a vagina doctor, and yes. So her name is Dr. Jen Gunter.
Yeah.
Jen, her last name is Gunter, Dr. Jen Gunter, and she's fantastic. She's written, I think her book is called The Vagina Bible, if I remember correctly, and it's everything you need to know. What everything is science based. Everything is just straight facts. And the smackdowns that she does of people being dumb about things that have to do with anything vagina is just chef's kids. It's an art form. It's fantastic, and you must follow her.
I'm excited. I will definitely be following her anytime. Anytime that someone can handle confrontation with grace and intelligently, like automatically earns just a bajillion cool points in my book, because it's fascinating to watch. Because how many of us get into an argument and we get tongue tied, and then like 2 days later you think of the perfect thing to say. And so to see someone that can do it instantaneously, just about like, it just feeds my soul.
Yes.
I love it.
Do you have another one?
Oh yeah, I've got plenty. So Alexandria, I'm not gonna say her name right, Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC.
Yes.
But no matter your political affiliation, because I don't agree with everything that she says or believes in, which is fine, but her as a human being and as a woman fascinates me. She is smart. She has worked her ass off, And the same thing, grace under fire. Like to see someone combat what she's had to deal with in such
Mm-hmm.
a smart and graceful way, there's just so much to learn from that. And for her to be where she is at her age and what she's had to deal with, like, is just
Yeah.
amazing to watch. So again, and it's good to look outside of your beliefs for inspiration as well, to challenge them and not to change them. It can reaffirm your own beliefs, which is great, but to learn from other perspectives. And so I
Yep.
adore her, and she is just hysterical when she claps back at someone. I love it.
Yeah, she's super witty.
Yes.
It's very entertaining, very, very
Yep.
entertaining, and it is an art form. Now, the next one for me, her name is Sonali, and she goes by the handle on Instagram, the Fat Sex Therapist.
Oh,
She's also wonderful because her vision, well, her part of her bio here, it says non-binary butch queer. And so you're getting like that perspective, and she talks a lot about fat phobia and intersectionality of like being a woman, but being a woman who is queer, or being a woman who is fat, or being all of these different things that make life either more complicated or more complex, or just like, and this is the stuff that your clients go through. Again, this is a big part of the reason why you listeners should go and hop and follow this kind of accounts that are maybe super outside of the scope, maybe of who you are, or what you believe in, or what you have learned, or what is deemed socially acceptable in your culture. It doesn't matter. You're not here to we're not trying to indoctrinate you into anything. We're trying to open your world into understanding that women are super complex, and learning for women who are equally complex is going always to play in your favor, because you will be so much better for that. So do yourself a favor and follow her too.
yeah, that sounds outstanding. Love
Who's
it.
next?
My last one, so Claire Diaz Ortiz. So she is an author and specializes in like startup productivity. And so, like a book that she's written is Social Media Success for Every Brand. And she's done a few others. So she's really famous for like getting the Pope on Twitter and a bunch of other stuff. Like she live tweeted her birth, which was really, went viral and was funny and stuff. But from a business standpoint, like very clear, funny, and enjoyable to follow and to learn from as far as productivity and social media is concerned. Like it's not a lot of fluff. It's kind of like the Online Trainer Academy. Like here's your foundation, and you need to nail this before getting into any of this other weird crap that you think is a little sexier. And so I enjoy following her for that reason, for social media type stuff, productivity stuff, and she's
Yeah.
just funny.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, love that. The next one for me, her name is Sonya Renee Taylor, and she is a New York Times bestselling author. Her book is called The Body Is Not an Apology.
Yes.
And yeah, have you read it?
No, it's on my list.
Yeah, it's super worth it. And so her whole thing is she's committed to radical self-love
Hmm.
and as a way of liberation. She's a black woman. Her, I don't know, her vision, her voice is powerful and amazing, and the stuff that she has to say is very, very important. And again, for the trainers, coaches listening right now, if you work with women and you work with women who have struggled for decades with a difficulty to accept their body because they feel like they're unworthy, that they don't fit what society is demanding that women be, and all this kind of stuff. This is the kind of content that you need to be bathing in on everyday basis, because it is going to equip you with a vocabulary, with a way to talk to them and to really connect and help them weed through the troubles of everything that they feel and they experience when there's no self-acceptance, there's a lack of self-love and all this kind of stuff. This is super important.
Yeah. And I don't know if she talks about this, but I saw this recently and it's tangentially related and I want to bring it up anyway. So, how when women talk about their bodies, especially post pregnancy, like, oh, like you're a warrior and tiger stripes and all of this like super positive imagery that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't sit well for a lot of women, that they can't deal with that kind of positivity towards their bodies after having babies and this, obviously drastic change. And so again, from a content perspective, being careful with toxic positivity.
Yes.
And it's okay to get them, instead of from, what can be loathing their body, to body neutrality. And just, the body is a thing that helps me do these things. So like, it might be too much to go from loathing to this crazy positivity switch. Like, that just doesn't work for some women. Like, I'm like that. Like, I'm very woohoo, cheerleadery, and so it works for me. I get buy-in really easy. I'm kind of a sucker like that. But like, for the women that aren't like that, that's very difficult. So I hope that, and I would imagine that she probably talks about body neutrality too, where it's, not one end of the spectrum or the other, that there's a middle ground that can be found that sits well with, or sits better for a lot of women.
Exactly. It is. Oh, I love this. I think we're covering a lot of ground. Do you have any others that you'd like to include on your list?
I'm going to put the rest in the show notes, I think, because I spoke to a few other women, because some other of our staff and other mentors, I wanted to get them included in this, because there are just so many women worth following that I didn't want to shortchange this episode. So I will be adding some additional ones in the show notes. But with that being said, I would love to hear back from our listeners for who you guys follow. Tag us in posts, so at the PTDC for Instagram, and also email me, amber@theptdc.com. I would love to hear where you guys are kind of putting your time into, and other women that are worth following, because women are worth sharing.
Yes, we want to know. I'm glad. And you know what? And for everybody who messages back and tells us like about hints, like thank you, and we want to give you a shout out because we really appreciate it. Like, you need to help us get this valuable, people who are doing good work. We want for everybody in our networks to know about them, and we want to spread the good gospel of solid people doing solid work for the betterment of humanity.
100%. So those show notes can be found at onlinetrainer.com/podcast. Hello. And then, of course, our show is sponsored by the Online Trainer Academy. If you're a coach in the health and fitness industry and you want to help more people while creating more freedom for yourself, make sure that you enroll in the Online Trainer Academy to learn how to build your online business today. Go to onlinetrainer.com/academy to learn more.
And we will leave you there also in the show notes a picture of my pot plant.
Yes. Yes. Send that over. A little bit what they're
help me name my pot plant. I feel like it needs a name.
Yes. You need to start a thing for that.
Oh,
yes.
great.
And I will call it now. Someone is going to say Potty McPot plant. I guarantee someone's going to say that.
That's great.
I
love it. Well, we hope you didn't miss Jonathan or Ren, because who needs them?
Exactly. All right. Well, in famous Ren terms, jingle, jingle.
This is the Online Trainer Show. Trainer Show. Trainer Show. This is the Online Trainer Show. We shouldn't have a podcast.